Today I'm just going to talk a little bit about mechanisms and sort of the differences a little bit between the old Erard antique mechanisms that we've got here, and I've got a modern Salvi mechanism here, which is on a neck that's currently being replaced, so I'll talk a little bit about that. So yeah, I'll sort of, you can see in this one here, this is a donor mechanism. So it's actually got one of the plates taken off, and you can see all of the links in here. This is the internals of the mechanism. This one's all in pieces because, yeah, as I say, it's a donor mechanism, so it's been used for parts for other harps. So because obviously you can't get new parts for antique harps anymore, so when we need a part and it's quicker than making it and therefore cheaper than making it, we can take it off one of these old mechanisms. They were all handmade, so you have to be quite close in the mechanism number to the harp that you're going to be putting it on, because otherwise they just won't fit, because they did change things over the years, and again, because they're all handmade, they tend to sort of be made in batches, and if they're far apart in the mechanism number, then chances are they just won't fit. But yeah, so basically the principles are the same, but I'm trying to think of the right words, but essentially there's sort of one big difference to the mechanism of an old harp to a new harp. So sort of, as most harpists will know, you've got all your discs here, and you can't see any mechanism apart from when you look underneath into the inside of the mechanism. Whereas on an old harp, you have, try and get that a bit closer, you have these parts which are the external mechanism. I'm not quite sure why Erard put them on the outside rather than the inside. I assume it was just easier at the time, and to be fair, he's about 100 times smarter than me because he managed to come up with these mechanisms, so I'm not going to question it. But yeah, so you've got your basses and your sort of fifth down into your fourth octaves where the mechanism is actually on the outside, so you can see the way that the mechanism operates on the outside. You do still have links on the inside here, as you can see there as well, which is carrying the motion down to the bottom, where it turns into more of a traditional mechanism, as it were. But that's the big difference between the old ones and the new ones, is just that this mechanism is on the outside, whereas on the new one it's all contained on the inside. Beyond that, the principles are almost identical from 200 odd years ago to what they are now. They still work on the same principle of sort of converting that linear motion of moving the pedals into that rotational motion of the discs. So essentially still the same, just operates very slightly differently. So let's just have a look at the sort of parts of the mechanism with this donor action here, if I can get them out. So these longer parts here are what we call the links. Then you've got your toggles or your cams, or I'm sure that people call them different things depending on who you're talking to. So they're pretty dirty, but these are made of brass, and in modern harps they're made of brass as well. Let me see, actually, let's get the camera a bit closer because you probably actually can't see what I'm talking about. So hopefully you can see that a bit better now. But yeah, so the long parts are your links. They're made of steel of some sort or another, depends who's making them. Then here's your cams or your toggles, which join all of your links together. And these are riveted together. So when people talk about re-riveting a mechanism, they're talking about replacing these rivets, because essentially this movement, the constant movement of when you're operating the pedals, is what's wearing the mechanism out. So just this constant action and the back pressure of the strings pushing against the discs is just wearing this out every time you use the pedals. So basically what you're doing when you re-rivet a mechanism is you're quite often taking these rivets out, using what's called a reamer to go into the hole to then make it perfectly circular again. Then you pop a slightly bigger rivet back in there and you hammer it back in place, and that just makes it all tight and stops any of that clicking and clacking, and hopefully gets rid of any buzzes or anything like that. So these cams then sit on arbors that go through, and then this front face here, it's slightly different on the old ones. The new ones have a screw where the disc attaches on, whereas these were pinned on for these lower discs down here. But this arbor links directly to the disc, and then that's what's giving you, this movement. This would be still, and that's going to cam back and forth. I can't get it to do it without it being in the mechanism really, but that rotation is what's giving you the movement of the disc. And the principles are the same for the modern harp. It's working in the same way. So your three main parts of the internals are your links, your toggles, and your arbors. Beyond that, you've got bearings on modern harps which sit into these holes where the arbors go, and then you've obviously got your discs which go on the front as well. The main metal part is usually referred to as the plate, but again, I'm sure that people have different words for it because it's quite sort of insular, so I'm sure that people have developed their own language in different parts of the world and probably in just different parts of the country. So let's now talk a bit more about this modern salvie mechanism. So as I said, this is off a salvie harp that's currently having the neck replaced. You can probably see this is where it was completely cracked through, and if you've looked on our Instagram page or whatever, you've seen how it was completely in two pieces, and it's just been glued back together so that we can make a pattern, so that we can match it exactly to the body. But anyway, back to the mechanism. So the mechanism on modern harps is held in, you've, I'm sure, seen all of these black screws. There's only one in here at the moment, so these are, again, confusingly called arbors, and they hold your mechanism to the neck. They're essentially just hanging it off. So you can see here, you've got these holes where the arbors go through, and that just hangs the mechanism off of the neck. It doesn't really sort of tie them together as such, it's just literally, giving the mechanism a place to sit, basically. The rest of these holes, these are just for the bridges here, just so they've got a bit of clearance if they come through the back of the plate, and so they don't push into the neck, and that's just your tuning pin holes. Yeah, so let's set this aside. It doesn't stand up anymore, so I just put that down on the floor. So yeah, so this plate is slightly unusual because it's made of aluminium rather than the brass that most salvie mechanisms are made of. Camacs are actually made of aluminium as well. It just helps to keep the weight down. I don't, to be honest, know if there's too much difference mechanically between the two. I'm sure someone out there that's smarter than I am can tell me exactly what the difference is in terms of the way that they work, essentially. But yeah, so this is a bit lighter than the brass mechanism. Most people are using brass, Horngarker, Lyon & Healy. Yeah, generally brass. It's traditional, so I assume that's partly the reason why we still use it. But yeah, so then you've got your bridges, this bridges as well. These ones are adjustable. Basically the tension from the higher strings is less, so you can actually have adjustable bridges, so you can get better adjustment of your intonation, whereas on these lower strings, particularly the bass wires, the tension is so high that you can have problems if you had adjustable ones. It's going to end up causing damage to the mechanism. They might just tear off, so that's that. As I mentioned previously, these discs are screwed onto the mechanism with these little screws in the centre of the discs here. So when we're adjusting the discs, we unscrew that screw, turn the disc, which is then threaded on the outside, onto the arbor, and that just allows you to rotate it a little bit to get more or less pinch to, again, adjust the intonation. So the main challenge with the mechanism is transferring this, see if we can see it, this linear motion of the pedal into the rotational motion of the discs, and you've got this very, hopefully that'll go here, you've got a very complicated initial set of parts down here which is giving you a double throw, so you're getting your naturals and then your sharps down here, So obviously it's just trying to get, not just trying to, but it's working out to get the exact balance of everything to make sure that when you rotate, when you push that pedal down, it's going to start by rotating the natural disc more, and then as you come down into the sharp, it's going to pull the sharp on without the natural rotating anymore. I am not smart enough to be able to design one of these myself, but I'm always amazed at Erard, who managed to do it with no computers and no computer controlled machinery or design software or anything like that, 200 odd years ago, which I think is just mad. So yeah, so that's the basic thing. Is I think I've gone through all the different parts, and so that's the basic functionality of the mechanism and a general sort of rundown of the parts. But yeah, so hopefully that was slightly informative, and yeah, thanks.